Hello wonderful viewer, welcome to Mission 6 of the Terran AI campaign playthrough. We're here with Emperor's Flight. We'll go ahead and get started. Now the start of this mission is reminiscent of Mission 3 in that we don't start off with a base of our own. Instead we have allied units that fly in, initiate combat of this red base, and then you will gain ownership of their structures and their units after a certain amount of time. So this mission was a little tricky to get started as we needed to initialize the map and get all the resources and bases and stuff situated, but then not actually run the bot until we actually have buildings to utilize. So the tanks will go ahead and clear out all the ground units, Valkyries clear out all the air units. The Valkyries, again, insanitybot doesn't really know how to use air units such as Valkyries or Wraiths. In this case, he just kind of sends them to the right to defend this high ground against Mutalisk attack, and then we'll initialize once every building is landed, except for the factory, as we're not worrying about the factory just yet. We have our starport, engineering bay, and barracks. Unfortunately, this style of initialization means that we don't have any supply depots on the ground. So you'll see us. Excuse me, I had to sneeze there. You'll notice us devote most of our resources into supply depot construction just to kind of catch up with our supply. Any SCV that's not actively constructing a supply depot will be harvesting minerals. This base is also kind of small when it comes to placing down a sufficient number of supply depots. So you'll see we'll fill in this space nicely, but then for some reason after we fill in this area, insanitybot really struggles to find another decent place to start putting supply depots down. It doesn't like to put it right against the coastline. It also is hesitant to clog up areas around where our production will go. So eventually, oh, and also our bio goes out and immediately gets killed. That's not a bug. That's a feature. I promise. it's not just to throw away some supply. If they can kill the pair of goons and the cannon over here, that's great. It gets us started early. If not, it's not a big deal. Just frees up some supply. The siege tanks will remain on the high ground, just provide some extra support, but they're not utilized past that. But anyway, as I was saying, once insanitybot has this area full of supply depots and then it starts struggling to figure out where to place them, eventually I told the bot just to start throwing them out in this open area up here. That was far easier than the enormous calculations it was doing trying to find convenient spots to put the supply depots. So instead we just start filling up this space, which isn't too big a deal. They'll occasionally get attacked, but it's usually close enough to our base where our bio can go deal with it without issue. Hunter's going to go up there and peek around, see that his units are still there. Again, he really wants to take this expansion, but it's currently occupied by Protoss force. So this map is also unique in the fact that there are 3 opponents on the map. There are 2 Zergs and 1 Protoss, but the Zerg and the Protoss are unaligned from each other and will actively attack one another. Actually, the Protoss mostly stays defensive unless they're attacking you, but the Zerg will actively attack the Protoss. And you will have permanent vision of this area, which is a okay thing, but it does lead the science vessels to, they have full energy, so they really want to radiate stuff. So since we have constant view of this area, it's led the science vessels to just actively flying up here, casting spells, and then flying back, which wouldn't be a problem if there weren't hostiles right here ready to pick them off. So we'll most likely lose these science vessels, given enough time before we're ready to fully move out on the map. This map's also a little slow to get the ball rolling, as these minerals are not placed in a very convenient spot. Our command center is all the way back here, and the area we have to harvest these minerals leads to a lot of, SCVs having to go all the way around the back side to get to these mineral fields or this mineral field, or all the way around the side to get this mineral field. So all in all, it's just a very inefficient layout. And so our mineral production will like really struggle until we get this natural base up and running. This natural base has a lot of minerals and is placed in a very convenient manner. So, but for right now, the main base will just keep harvesting as it can. Even if it's inefficient, we'll still try to saturate it as much as possible. Getting our ComSat station early, just in case there are things like lurkers or Dark Templar on the map. And again, that science vessel sees that there's a juicy Protoss zealot visible for a second, so it'll go up and try to irradiate it before coming back home. Our strategy here is we will build up a sufficient number of bio units, usually like just over a full squad, before we make the decision to go take our expansion. And by that point, we'll have Marine and Medic, which we'll be able to trade into the Dragoons, as well as the Photon Cannon and the pair of Scouts that is over here. Again, we have some dropships here that are not utilized this mission. I toyed with the idea of trying to do drops, but the enemy has a lot of anti-air around the edge of the map, so it just kind of makes the dropships inefficient. But we don't really care about, 4 extra supply in the long run, so they're just kind of left here to their own devices. The factory is also floating because we don't utilize it, so it's just not taking up space, but remaining passive. Getting +1 upgrades. The vessels go, getting some kills. This one will probably make it home, but it will probably die the next time it goes out. It's just how it always works. Oh, this Overlord actually means Brown might have tried to come down to attack us, and odds are pretty good that they got pulled into a fight here. So hopefully that occurred, because that will mean there are less defenders that we have to deal with when we push over there. You'll notice the Aegis squad kind of falls back. That's due to the fact that it doesn't have what it feels like are a sufficient number of units to put up a good defense. So rather than engaging the enemy directly, it will push back to like a halfway point between the enemy and our base, and it waits for additional units to be produced and assigned to the squad. And then once it has what it feels like is a sufficient number, it will step forward to engage. But in this case, we just have a bunker to, take care of the unit for us, so it's not too big a deal. So this map, initially I was going to run it with the same combat logic where the bot would target the closest structure to its main base as the target, and thus would clear the map. It usually will come up to the left side and will start killing Brown off, and then it will come over to Orange, Zerg, and start killing them off before coming up the middle and attacking Protoss directly. But that decision was leading to a lot of running back and forth across the map, because what would happen is our ComSat stations would hit near max energy, and it would do a few scans around enemy bases just to check in on things, and the Zergs will rebuild buildings in certain places. So what would happen is we'll kill all the structures we feel are close enough. We see that a structure across the map is even closer than, the one that we're currently targeting, so we'll switch. We'll run across the map to go kill that new building, but by the time we do that, we'll scan the other side and see that new buildings have been constructed over there, and it just leads to like kind of a ping-pong effect where we're just slowly killing either base, but not really being efficient about it. Unfortunately, our first attempt at moving out was thwarted. The Photon Cannon does quite a significant amount of damage. So our initial force was pushed back, but with our siege tank support, killing these Dragoons shouldn't be too much of a problem after these SVs kind of pull back. He's going to step forward and irradiate that Zealot. Oh, I think that was an observer that just got blinded there by that medic, which is really funny because that observer is essentially useless now. Protoss has no way of removing blind from their units, and the observer is purely a detection unit. So it really is just taking up supply at this point it has no other purpose.
Base is under attack.
This will continue until our squad reaches up an effective number of units, and then it will move forward. And you'll notice we're kind of floating money at the moment. That's because we want to come over and secure this objective, but we need to clear it first. So we're building up a force since our initial push failed, and then we will, once this is clear, we'll go take it. We'll start adding on more barracks. We'll tech up to higher tiers of upgrades and units. But that's all just dependent on our initial push out being successful. Again, our vessel stepping forward to irradiate zealots in the distance. Typically, irradiate is prioritizing things like defilers, guardians, lurkers, mutalisks, those kind of things. But since he doesn't have any vision of any of those kind of units, and he's already reaching like above 150 energy, instead he just kind of filters in any unit that's biological and a valid target for irradiate, and he'll fly off and hit those as well. A smart decision might be to hold off using offensive spells until we are on the aggression. The reason I haven't done that is because the spells are useful in a defensive sense. So I want the vessels to be able to cast Irradiate on forces that are kind of attacking our base. So the solution will probably be something along the lines of filtering out, being more strict about how far away units are to cast those abilities when we're not aggressive, but when we are aggressive, kind of open the floodgates and fly out and just hit whoever's available. We've successfully expanded. Like I said, this base has a lot of mineral patches. This is when we get this saturated is really when our production will come online. We build a bunker here to defend from attacks from brown. Attacks from blue are just kind of handled by the natural progression of units being constructed and then sent over to gather up at the natural expansion. We'll just kind of engage them along the way, or they'll path down to the bunker and get shot by siege tanks. But yeah, as I was talking about before, targeting the closest enemy structure as our objective, that was successful in clearing the map, but it led to a very lengthy game. We're talking like 45-minute plus, just because insanitybot was running units to and fro across the map as the Zerg would keep trying to rebuild, and then we'd come over and keep clearing it out. So instead of that, we've just targeted this area where the command center, which is our target, as the only real point we care about. So you'll see once we hit a sufficient number of bio units, we start going aggressive. We'll come down this ramp, we'll push directly into blue, and then we'll make our slow push to our objective. We'll probably get pushed back multiple times because bio isn't particularly effective against Protoss, especially when Protoss has splash damage, which fortunately this map, the Protoss doesn't build Reavers, which are the anti-bio unit that Protoss has. They do have High Templar, though I don't know if I've seen very many Storms be called on this mission. I'm not sure if they have the tech or not, but they have the High Templar, so I think they actively make use of the Hallucinate ability, which is kind of funny because they'll come in with an army of like 12 scouts, and you'll panic for a moment and be like, oh no, like I don't know if I have enough anti-air, and then it turns out like eight of the scouts are hallucinations, and there's only like 4 real scouts, and scouts don't do very much damage against ground targets in small numbers, so you'll kill them pretty easily. Alright, we've tacked on a number of additional barracks. You'll notice that we're just kind of cramming these in wherever they fit. Fortunately, bio is much harder to trap units in with structures compared to like siege tanks or Goliaths and stuff. So for bio play, we're a lot less worried about keeping good space between structures, and we just kind of slap things in wherever they fit. continuing to add on supply up in this area here. We should be just about at the point where these two initial squads are gonna move out. Yeah, there they go. Or at least the first one anyway.
Did someone page me?
The second one is kind of split, but I imagine they'll be moved out pretty soon as we gain the supply and as we gain more and more SCV mineral harvesters over here. So since I mentioned Bio isn't particularly a smart choice against Protoss, you might be wondering why we go all into Bio when, you know, previous maps we've shown that we're pretty efficient at going mechanized builds. And that's simply because initially I was intending on full clearing the map and going against the two Zergs, but that changed after seeing like kind of how long it took insanitybot to finish the map when it was doing the full clear. So we maintain the Bio, but instead we just focus on attacking Protoss, and it works well enough. Like, it'd probably be more efficient to go mechanized, but again, like I mentioned, the base is not very optimized in its layout, so that would lead to a lot of weird factory positions, and the sprawl would probably get pretty bad. So instead we just kind of go all into Bio, and we're just going to kind of accept the losses. We have enough minerals where we can afford to throw away like 600 Marines, you know, against the enemy, and it's not going to be a big deal because we'll still win in the end. And fortunately for us, Protoss doesn't rebuild their structures in a very intelligent manner, so like the photon cannons that we take out in the front will be placed in like weird places, like on the side or up top and stuff. So the more structures we kill, the easier our path will become. We're also getting +2 upgrades from our engineering bays. We'll start vessel production to help protect the bioforce as it moves forward. You'll see use of like defensive matrix on units, or we'll irradiate high Templar, the occasional zealot if we have enough energy for it. Oh, this medic is chasing the observer. So it shouldn't target units that are invisible, but what will happen is the observer becomes visible for like half a second, and then insanitybot will log this unit as like, oh, this is, you know, we can flare this, and then the medic will go chase it and try to flare the enemy, but then we'll end up dying. So this is another bug that needs to be fixed. It hasn't come up before because insanitybot doesn't go Bio versus Protoss in 1v1s. So this is kind of a unique instance that's just for this mission. There's a high Templar, but it's not using Storm. Again, I'm not sure if it's capable or not on this map. But we'll continue to make progress. You'll see squads get hung up here. That's because insanitybot likes to try to cluster its Bio squad close together, so it doesn't like units getting very spread out. But what will happen in this kind of situation, where the units up top are trying to path down, but then they keep getting stuck because units at the front are trying to move forward, and they get too spread apart, so the insanitybot tells it, like, okay, regroup the squad in the center, and that leads the Marines up top pushing against this edge, and the Marines at the front coming back, and then they get stuck. Fortunately, they're able to kind of work themselves out, but you will occasionally see squads get kind of hung up as they're moving up and down ramps. Our mineral production is in full swing. You'll see the barracks count is sufficient to continuously maintain production. We could probably even add a couple more barracks on to match our minerals, but this is a sufficient amount where we're able to just continuously pump out Marine medic and push to our objective. Occasionally you'll see squads like run into each other, and one squad's trying to get to the bunker, one squad's trying to get down to attack the enemy, and they'll just get stuck here. And that kind of situation will resolve itself once we hit 200 supply, because at that point it tells every squad to go attack. So even if someone's trying to get up here and wait, they'll get the green light, and then just everything will push at once, which we're almost at that point now. And we've pushed
Your forces are under attack.
we've pushed far enough where this next cluster of squads moving forward should be sufficient to reach our objective and finish the mission, so not too worried about people getting stuck. We'll hit that max supply and be just fine. We may expand before the match is through just because of the main running low on minerals, but if so, we can just expand here, and this is very easily defended. So, blind observer overhead.
Your forces are under attack.
These squads are caught on one another. That's funny.
Your forces are
Alright, yeah,
under
we'll hit
attack.
max supply. Everything's gonna get the green light, and we're just gonna go kill the enemy.
Your forces are under attack. Upgrade complete.
So just like the last mission, this mission, it is funny how often Terran missions end with you targeting a yellow command
Forces are
center.
under attack.
Like it happens, I think, 3 times, which isn't a lot, but interesting that it happened 3 times.
Your forces are under
But yeah, the same considerations need to be had where once this is destroyed, we need to make sure insanitybot pauses his actions because a supply, or not a supply, dropship comes out, flies to this building, enters it, and then this building explodes. And that's caused some issues in the past. So after our objective is destroyed, insanitybot will pause all actions, all the Marines will kind of finish their last attack order, and then we just kind of sit out until the ending cinematic plays through, and then we're done. Yeah, we have a plentiful army up here, 3-3 Marines with STEM. Even though they're not great at attacking into Protoss army compositions, like the AI on this mission doesn't have a sufficient ball of units to deal with something like this, so we just eventually ground them down. And yeah, so that command center is destroyed. We'll enter into this lengthy dialogue sequence. Basically, this is just Stukov saying that he's picking up a bunch of Zerg signals coming from Duran's position, and Duran's like, I ain't see no Zerg. And then this causes a rift to happen between Stukov and the Grand Admiral in charge of the UED forces. It just takes a while for them to talk through everything. So the funny thing is, back in the day when I initially played this in my much younger years, after this dialogue plays and that dropship spawns, a massive amount of mutalisks arrive in the top right corner, and the whole idea is it's supposed to be like a oh crap moment where what forces you have there are suddenly engaged with tons of mutalisks. And I remember as a kid, I just thought there was no way you could possibly face all of those mutalisks. So there was just so many of them. But it is funny to come back to this because when you have 100 supply worth of Marine medic that are fully upgraded, they just absolutely melt all of these mutalisks. So yeah, we'll come up here, and there's oh, there's so many mutalisks, but then they just absolutely evaporate against 3-3 Marines. It's just, there's no contest. It's just, oh man. All right, so after that building blows up, we are finished with that map in 24 minutes. Again, before changing to specifically target that command center's location, this would have taken us 45 minutes, so we've shaved 20 minutes of our time down. And again, I'm not going for a super optimized speedrun strat, but I do want to accomplish it in a relatively reasonable amount of time. So thanks for tuning again, and we'll come back for mission 7. And we are 2 missions away from completion. So thank you for your time, and hope you have a nice day.